From ancient myths to modern storytelling, the figure of Lucifer has long fascinated and intrigued us. Known by many names, Satan, the devil, the fallen angel, Lucifer embodies some of humanity's deepest questions and concerns. What does it mean to rebel against authority? Is knowledge worth the price of suffering? Can evil ever be justified? In this video essay, I propose a controversial and illuminating journey to unveil the mysterious and often contradictory portrayals of Lucifer across history, religion, literature, and popular culture. By examining the various faces of this enigmatic figure, from the tragic hero to the seductive tempter, we'll discover what Lucifer reveals about our own struggles with free will, morality, and the search for meaning in a world of light and darkness. Through comparative mythology, biblical interpretation, artistic representation, and psychological symbolism, we'll explore the enduring power of the Lucifer mythos to reflect the complexities and paradoxes of the human condition. We'll situate each interpretation within its specific historical and cultural context, tracing the evolution of this archetypal figure from ancient times to the present day. As we encounter the profound theological and philosophical questions raised by the figure of Lucifer, we'll consider the contemporary relevance of this symbol to debates around religion, individualism, and social justice. We'll also reflect on our own personal engagement with this provocative and transformative archetype. Ultimately, our goal is to shed new light on the many faces of Lucifer and to invite viewers to contemplate the deeper significance of this enduring mythos for our understanding of ourselves and the world we inhabit. So, join us! I am Irrevelato. I do epic journeys into the heart of darkness and the mystery of the human soul once in a while. If you want to explore our channel, you'll find many videos with Carl Jung, Francis Bacon, Nietzsche, the Kybalion, and the list will increase in the near future. Dear friends, I need your support. I am doing what I love, which is to know and share. I am open-minded and I like to open up discussions. Let me know what you think. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to iRevelato if you want to unveil the lives and stories of history's luminaries. Like, share, comment if you want. Patreon and affiliate links are also available in the description, but the main point here is Lucifer. So let's begin. To begin our analysis of Lucifer, let us turn to another mythical figure who shares striking similarities. Prometheus, the titan who defied the gods to bring fire to humanity. This ancient Greek myth resonates deeply with the human experience, embodying the eternal struggle between the individual and the forces that seek to control and limit our potential. In Greek mythology, Prometheus steals the divine flame from Mount Olympus and gifts it to mortals, enabling them to develop civilization and arts. This act of defiance against the Olympian gods is a powerful symbol of the human thirst for knowledge and progress. Fire represents the transformative power of knowledge, the ability to shape the world according to our will and imagination. By gifting fire to mortals, Prometheus not only provided them with a practical tool for survival, but also ignited the spark of creativity within the human soul. However, Prometheus's transgression incurs the wrath of Zeus, who punishes him by chaining him to a rock where an eagle eternally pecks at his regenerating liver. This haunting image is a reminder of the price that must be paid for crossing the boundaries set by those in power. It raises profound questions about the nature of authority, the limits of individual freedom, and the consequences of challenging the established order. Similarly, Lucifer is often portrayed as a bringer of light, as his name translates to light-bearer in Latin. In the biblical story of the Garden of Eden, Lucifer appears as the serpent who tempts Eve with the fruit of knowledge, promising that it will make her like God, knowing good and evil. Genesis 3:5. Just as Prometheus's gift symbolizes the illumination of the mind, Lucifer's offering represents a challenge to divine authority and a catalyst for human consciousness. Yet both figures pay a steep price for their actions. Prometheus endures eternal torture, while Lucifer is cast out of heaven and condemned to rule over hell. Their stories raise thought-provoking questions. Is the pursuit of knowledge always worth the consequences? Are they heroic champions of humanity or cautionary examples of the dangers of defying the natural order? Do they represent the noble aspirations of the human spirit or the destructive force of unchecked pride? The parallels between Prometheus and Lucifer run deeper than their shared status as rebels against divine authority. Both figures are associated with the gift of knowledge and the elevation of human consciousness. Prometheus's fire is a metaphor for the spark of divine wisdom that sets humanity apart from other creatures, while Lucifer's temptation represents the awakening of self-awareness and moral discernment. This connection suggests a profound link between knowledge and transgression, as if the very act of seeking understanding is itself a form of rebellion against the limitations imposed by God or fate. Prometheus and Lucifer can be seen as archetypal representations of the human quest for meaning and self-determination, even in the face of overwhelming odds and inevitable consequences. As we explore these rich mythological and symbolic layers, we begin to see how the stories of Prometheus and Lucifer are more than just ancient tales or religious allegories. They are mirrors that reflect the deepest aspects of our own psyche and the eternal struggles that define the human experience. The myths of Prometheus and Lucifer serve as enduring archetypes of the rebellious spirit that drives human progress, even as they warn us of the potential pitfalls of challenging the status quo. They are fundamental pillars on which our understanding of knowledge, power, and morality stand, inviting us to reflect on the double-edged nature of progress and the eternal dance between light and darkness that shapes our existence. As we continue to peel the manifold faces of Lucifer, we encounter an unexpected comparison: Jesus Christ, the central figure of Christianity. At first glance, these two may seem like polar opposites, the fallen angel and the risen Savior. Yet they share a surprising connection in their etymological roots. Both Lucifer and Christ stem from words meaning light-bringer or morning star. This linguistic link hints at a deeper symbolic resonance between the two figures. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus says, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven," Luke 10:18, suggesting a sort of mirror-image relationship between the divine and the demonic. Just as Lucifer is cast out of heaven for his rebellion, Jesus willingly descends to earth to redeem humanity, facing temptation and suffering along the way. In fact, the temptation narratives in the Bible reveal striking parallels between Lucifer and Jesus. In the Garden of Eden, Lucifer tempts Eve with the promise of godlike knowledge. In the wilderness, Satan tempts Jesus with offers of worldly power and glory. Both face a choice between obedience and rebellion, between humility and pride. Yet where Lucifer falls, Jesus triumphs, resisting temptation and fulfilling his divine mission. This comparison illuminates the complex duality of the light-bringer archetype. On one hand, the light represents knowledge, truth, and spiritual illumination. On the other hand, it can symbolize pride, deception, and the allure of forbidden power. Lucifer and Jesus embody these contradictory aspects, inviting us to consider the fine line between enlightenment and transgression. It's worth noting that there are alternative perspectives beyond mainstream Christian doctrine. Some Gnostic and esoteric traditions suggest a closer connection or even shared identity between these two figures. For example, certain Gnostic texts, such as the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Judas, present a more mystical view of Jesus' teachings and his relationship to the spiritual realm. These texts were not included in the official biblical canon, but they have nonetheless influenced various mystical and occult interpretations over the centuries. One intriguing idea found in some of these alternative traditions is that Jesus, as the pre-existent Logos or divine word, was present in the Garden of Eden and involved in the enlightenment of humanity from the very beginning. This notion parallels Lucifer's role as the bringer of knowledge and self-awareness, raising questions about the true nature of the fall and its consequences. Furthermore, Some esoteric philosophies view Lucifer not as an evil entity, but as a necessary catalyst for human evolution and individuation. In this light, Lucifer's rebellion against God could be seen as a symbolic representation of the human journey towards self-knowledge and spiritual growth, echoing Jesus' role in guiding humanity towards higher understanding. While these ideas are fascinating to consider, it's important to approach them with discernment and respect for different beliefs. Mainstream Christian theology firmly separates Jesus and Lucifer as the Savior and the fallen angel, respectively. The comparisons and speculations we've explored here are meant to shed light on the rich, symbolic and archetypal dimensions of these figures, not to assert any definitive claims about their true nature or historical reality. As we get acquainted with Lucifer, we'll encounter even more diverse and sometimes contradictory interpretations, each offering a peculiar lens through which to examine the enduring questions of knowledge, power, rebellion, and redemption. Moreover, the parallels between Lucifer and Jesus raise provocative questions about the nature of free will and destiny. Are their paths predetermined by divine plan, or do they represent the power of individual choice? By rebelling against God, does Lucifer paradoxically fulfill a necessary role in the cosmic drama of salvation? And what does it mean for Jesus to be tempted by the devil? Is it a test of his humanity, or a hint at the interconnectedness of good and evil? As we think about these questions, we begin to see how the Lucifer-Jesus comparison adds new layers of meaning to the story of the fall and redemption. It suggests that light and darkness, rebellion and obedience, pride and humility are not always clear-cut opposites, but rather threads in the reality we experience. Throughout history, the figure of Lucifer has captured the imagination of artists, writers, and storytellers, inspiring a rich heritage of cultural expressions. From the haunting imagery of Dante's Inferno to the rebellious romanticism of Milton's Paradise Lost, Lucifer has taken on countless forms and guises, each reflecting the values, fears, and aspirations of the societies that produced them. In the Divine Comedy, Dante depicts Lucifer as a grotesque, three-faced monster trapped in the frozen depths of hell, forever gnawing on the bodies of traitors. This terrifying portrayal, influenced by medieval Christian theology, emphasizes the consequences of sin and the ultimate fate of those who defy God's authority. Yet even in this grim vision, there is a sense of tragic grandeur, as if Lucifer's suffering is the price of his unyielding pride and ambition. In contrast, Milton's Paradise Lost presents a more complex and ambivalent portrait of Lucifer, now named Satan. Here, the fallen angel emerges as a charismatic anti-hero, a rebel with a cause who dares to challenge the tyranny of heaven. Milton's vivid language and psychological insight imbue Satan with a seductive charm and a sense of wounded nobility, inviting readers to empathize with his plight even as they recognize the folly of his actions. This romantic reimagining of Lucifer as a tragic hero, a symbol of individual freedom and defiance against oppressive authority, had a profound impact on subsequent generations of artists and writers. From the Byronic heroes of 19th century literature to the sympathetic devils of modern popular culture, Lucifer has come to embody the allure and the anguish of the outsider, the rebel, and the misunderstood genius. In the visual arts, representations of Lucifer have ranged from the horrific to the sublime, from medieval illuminations of the fall to the sensuous and androgynous figures of symbolist painters. These diverse depictions reflect the shifting attitudes towards the devil and the evolving understanding of evil, temptation, and human nature across different eras and cultures. In contemporary popular culture, Lucifer has become an ubiquitous presence, appearing in countless books, movies, TV shows, and music. From the suave and charming protagonist of the TV series Lucifer to the rebellious anti-hero of rock and metal music, the fallen angel has been adapted and reinvented to suit the tastes and concerns of modern audiences. These popular representations often play with the ambiguity and the allure of the Lucifer figure, blurring the lines between good and evil, hero and villain, victim and perpetrator. They reflect our ongoing fascination with the dark side of human nature, the seductive power of transgression, and the complex interplay between free will, destiny, and morality. Moreover, the proliferation of Lucifer in popular culture can be seen as a reflection of the increasing secularization and individualization of modern societies. As traditional religious frameworks lose their hold, the figure of Lucifer becomes a powerful symbol of self-determination, a metaphor for the human struggle to create meaning and purpose in a world without God. In this sense, the cultural evolution of Lucifer mirrors the broader shifts in human consciousness and the changing attitudes towards authority, morality, and the nature of evil. By tracing the many faces of Lucifer across art, literature, and popular culture, we can gain a deeper understanding of how our collective imagination has grappled with these enduring questions, and how the fallen angel continues to shape our understanding of ourselves and the world we inhabit. Throughout the twists and turns of our journey into the heart of the Lucifer mythos, one thing has become abundantly clear. This is no static or monolithic figure, but a shape-shifting, protean entity that has evolved and transformed in tandem with the ever-changing currents of human culture and consciousness. Like a dark mirror held up to the face of humanity, Lucifer has reflected back to us the fears, desires, and obsessions of each successive age, morphing and mutating to suit the needs and neuroses of the zeitgeist. From the stern and implacable adversary of medieval Christianity to the suave and seductive anti-hero of contemporary popular culture, the Prince of Darkness has worn many masks and played many roles on the stage of the collective psyche. To trace the cultural evolution of Lucifer is a dizzying journey through the labyrinth of history, a journey that takes us from the ancient myths of Mesopotamia and Persia to the postmodern cityscapes of Hollywood and beyond. At each turn, we encounter new facets and permutations of the Lucifer archetype, new layers of meaning and symbolism that both reflect and shape the values and worldviews of the societies that gave birth to them. In the earlier stages of his long and winding road, Lucifer appears as a shadowy and ambivalent figure, a trickster deity or rebel god who challenges the established order and champions the cause of human freedom. From the Prometheus of Greek mythology to the Ahriman of Zoroastrianism, these proto-Lucifers embody the eternal struggle between the forces of light and darkness, order and chaos, tradition and innovation. As the centuries roll on and the great monotheistic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam come to dominate the spiritual landscape of the Western world, Lucifer undergoes a profound transformation. No longer a morally ambiguous rebel or trickster, he becomes the supreme embodiment of evil, the fallen angel who wages an eternal war against God and his creation. In the vivid and terrifying imaginings of medieval art and literature, Lucifer is depicted as a grotesque and malevolent being, a dragon or serpent who lurks in the shadows, ever ready to tempt and deceive the unwary soul. Yet even in this guise, Lucifer retains a certain allure and fascination, a hint of the Promethean fire that smolders beneath the surface. In the hands of the great poet Dante, he becomes a tragic and majestic figure, a fallen king who reigns in the frozen depths of hell, forever consumed by his own pride and despair. And in the works of the Renaissance magicians and alchemists, he is recast as a bringer of forbidden knowledge, a guide to the occult mysteries that lie hidden beneath the veil of the material world. As the age of enlightenment dawns and the old certainties of faith begin to crumble, Lucifer undergoes yet another metamorphosis. In the works of the Romantic poets and philosophers, he emerges as a symbol of rebellion and individualism, a Promethean hero who defies the tyranny of heaven in the name of human freedom and self-determination. From Milton's Satan to Shelley's Prometheus, these Luciferian figures embody the spirit of the age, the hunger for liberation and self-expression that would soon set the world ablaze. In the 20th century, as the great ideologies of modernity clash and collide, Lucifer becomes a canvas, upon which each successive generation projects its own hopes and fears, its own dreams and nightmares. To the symbolists and decadents of fin de siècle Europe, he is a figure of dark and morbid beauty, an androgynous seducer who lures the soul into the abyss of its own desires. To the existentialists and absurdists of the post-war era, he is the embodiment of the human condition itself, a symbol of the cosmic futility and meaninglessness that haunts the modern mind. And in the postmodern age of mass media and global capitalism, Lucifer has become a ubiquitous presence in popular culture, a shape-shifting signifier that can mean anything and everything to anyone and everyone. From comic books to blockbuster movies, from heavy metal music to designer fashion, the devil has become a brand, a meme, a cultural commodity to be consumed and discarded at will. Yet even amidst this dizzying proliferation of images and interpretations, the core of the Lucifer archetype remains unchanged, a constant reminder of the darkness that dwells within the human heart and the eternal struggle between good and evil that defines the human condition. Whether we see him as a literal being or a symbolic construct, a religious icon or a psychological archetype, Lucifer continues to hold a mirror up to our own souls, challenging us to confront the shadows that lurk within and to grapple with the ultimate questions of existence. In the end, the cultural evolution of Lucifer is a testament to the enduring power of myth and archetype, to the way in which the great stories and symbols of the past continue to shape and inform our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. By tracing the many faces and forms of the devil across the ages, we come to see him not as a fixed or finished product, but as a living, breathing entity that grows and changes along with us, forever reflecting back to us the light and darkness of our own souls. It becomes clear that this enigmatic figure is more than just a religious or cultural icon. In the work of Carl Jung, Lucifer takes on a profound symbolic significance, embodying the hidden depths and repressed aspects of the human psyche. Jung's concept of the shadow is a brilliant angle through which to understand the enduring fascination with Lucifer. According to Jung, the shadow represents the unconscious, primitive, and socially unacceptable parts of our personality that we repress or deny. It is the dark side of our nature, the sum of all those qualities that we fear, reject, or despise in ourselves and others. In this light, Lucifer can be seen as the archetypal shadow figure, the personification of humanity's collective darkness. His rebellion against God, his pride, and his fall from grace mirror our own struggles with the forbidden impulses and desires that lurk beneath the surface of our consciousness. By confronting and embracing the Luciferian aspects of our psyche, Jung argued, we can achieve a greater sense of wholeness and self-understanding. This process of integrating the shadow is a crucial stage in what Jung called individuation, the lifelong journey towards psychological maturity and self-realization. By acknowledging and accepting our own capacity for evil, we can transcend the simplistic dichotomies of good and bad, light and dark, and recognize the complex, paradoxical nature of the human condition. Moreover, Jung's interpretation of Lucifer as a manifestation of the shadow can shed light on the allure and the terror that this figure evokes in our collective imagination. On one hand, Lucifer represents the seductive power of transgression, the temptation to defy social norms and explore the forbidden aspects of our nature. On the other hand, he embodies the fear of confronting our own darkness, the dread of losing control and succumbing to our most destructive impulses. This ambivalence is reflected in the rich symbolism that surrounds the Lucifer figure, from the serpent in the Garden of Eden to the fallen angel of Christian mythology. The serpent in particular is a potent archetype of transformation and renewal, shedding its skin to be reborn, just as we must shed our old selves to evolve and grow. Yet it is also a symbol of deception and temptation, the cunning and elusive aspect of our nature that lures us away from the path of righteousness. In the story of the fall, Lucifer's temptation of Eve can be seen as a metaphor for the awakening of human consciousness, the birth of self-awareness and moral choice. By eating from the tree of knowledge, Adam and Eve gain the capacity for discernment, the ability to distinguish between good and evil. Yet this newfound knowledge comes at a price. The loss of innocence, the expulsion from paradise, and the burden of responsibility for one's actions. This archetypal narrative mirrors the process of individuation as we leave behind the blissful ignorance of childhood and confront the challenges and complexities of adult life. By wrestling with the Luciferian aspects of our nature, our pride, our rebellion, our desire for forbidden knowledge, we can achieve a greater sense of self-mastery and authenticity. Furthermore, Jung's concept of the shadow can illuminate the psychological functions of the Lucifer figure in art, literature, and popular culture. By projecting our own repressed desires and fears onto this archetypal character, we can vicariously explore the dark side of human nature without confronting it directly in ourselves. The sympathetic portrayals of Lucifer in works like Paradise Lost or the TV series Lucifer allow us to empathize with the fallen angel, to recognize the humanity in his struggle, and to confront our own shadow selves through the medium of storytelling. In conclusion, the psychological perspective on Lucifer, particularly Jung's concept of the shadow, offers a profound and illuminating framework for understanding the enduring fascination with this complex figure. By recognizing Lucifer as a manifestation of our own repressed darkness, we can gain a deeper insight into the mysteries of the human psyche and the eternal dance between light and shadow that defines our existence. We cannot ignore the broader context of fallen angels, a concept that has captured the imagination of people across cultures and centuries. The idea of celestial beings rebelling against divine authority and falling from grace is a powerful and recurring theme in religious and literary traditions, with Lucifer often portrayed as the supreme leader of these rebellious spirits. The origins of the fallen angel myth can be traced back to ancient Jewish and Christian texts, such as the Book of Enoch and the Book of Revelation. In these narratives, a group of angels, often associated with the Watchers or the Sons of God, become enamored with human women and descend to earth, engaging in forbidden relationships and teaching humanity forbidden knowledge. As a consequence of their transgressions, these angels are cast out of heaven and condemned to eternal punishment. Over time, the story of the fallen angels became intertwined with the figure of Lucifer, the rebellious angel par excellence. In the Book of Revelation, Lucifer is described as a great dragon or serpent who is cast down from heaven along with his angels, waging war against God and his faithful servants. This cosmic battle between good and evil, with Lucifer as the archetype of rebellion and defiance, has inspired countless artistic and literary interpretations throughout history. The fallen angels, under Lucifer's leadership, have come to symbolize the allure and the consequences of pride, disobedience, and the abuse of free will. Their story mirrors the human struggle between the desire for autonomy and the need for structure and authority, the tension between individual freedom and the greater good. By rebelling against God, the fallen angels assert their own will and judgment, challenging the very foundations of the cosmic order. Yet the myth of the fallen angels also raises profound questions about the nature of evil, the problem of suffering, and the ultimate fate of those who transgress against the divine. Are the fallen angels truly wicked, or are they tragic figures, doomed by their own hubris and the inflexibility of heavenly law? Is their punishment just, or does it reveal a darker side to the Creator's omnipotence? These questions have fueled theological and philosophical debates for centuries as thinkers face the paradoxes and the mysteries of the fallen angel narrative. Moreover, the concept of fallen angels has taken on a rich symbolic and archetypal significance in human culture. The image of the rebellious angel, cast out of heaven and condemned to darkness, has become a powerful metaphor for the human condition, the experience of exile, alienation, and the search for redemption. In literature, fallen angels are often complex anti-heroes, embodying the romantic ideal of the tortured soul, the outcast who defies convention, and bears the weight of forbidden knowledge. This archetype is exemplified in works like John Milton's Paradise Lost, where Satan and his fallen angels become the central characters, evoking a sense of grandeur and pathos, even in their defeat. Through their speeches and actions, Milton's fallen angels raise questions about the nature of power, the right to self-determination, and the cost of rebellion, inviting readers to grapple with the moral ambiguities of the cosmic drama. In more recent times, the concept of fallen angels has been adapted and reimagined in various forms of popular culture, from comic books and fantasy novels to movies and television series. These modern interpretations often explore the themes of redemption, free will, and the blurring of boundaries between good and evil, reflecting the evolving attitudes and concerns of contemporary audiences. For example, in Neil Gaiman's Sandman series, the fallen angels fight with their own desires and regrets as they populate heaven, hell, and earth. Similarly, the TV series Supernatural features fallen angels as key players in the cosmic battle between light and darkness, with characters like Castiel and Lucifer embodying the tensions and the ambiguities of the fallen angel archetype. We're reminded of the timeless human struggle to understand the nature of good and evil, the bounds of freedom and authority, and the consequences of our choices. The myth of the fallen angels invites us to confront the shadows within ourselves and the world around us, to face the human experience, and to seek our own path towards knowledge, redemption, and enlightenment. As we continue our journey through the labyrinthine mythos of Lucifer, we find ourselves standing at the edge of an abyss, the abyss of the problem of evil. This is the shadow that has haunted human thought for millennia, the dark mirror that reflects our deepest fears and doubts about the nature of existence. And there, at the heart of this cosmic riddle, stands the figure of Lucifer, the fallen angel, the rebel who dared to defy the Creator. In the traditional Judeo-Christian narrative, Lucifer is the author of evil, the serpent who tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden, the adversary who unleashed sin and death upon the world. His rebellion against God is the original sin, the primal disruption that shatters the harmony of creation and sets in motion the great drama of human history. But is it really that simple? Is Lucifer merely a convenient scapegoat, a way for us to externalize the darkness that lurks within our own hearts? As we peer into the abyss of the origin of evil, we find ourselves confronted with a series of perplexing questions. If God is all good and all powerful, why did he allow Lucifer to rebel in the first place? Why did he create a world in which evil could take root and flourish? Is free will a sufficient explanation, or does it merely push the problem back a step? These are the questions that have haunted theologians and philosophers for centuries, the knots that the human mind struggles to untangle. Some have sought to cut through these knots with the sword of Manichaeism, the ancient Persian doctrine that posits two equal and opposite forces, good and evil, locked in an eternal struggle for supremacy. In this view, Lucifer is not a fallen angel, but an independent principle of darkness, coeval with God, and locked in a cosmic battle for the fate of the universe. But this dualistic solution only raises more problems than it solves. It undermines the sovereignty of God, the unity of creation, and the hope of ultimate redemption. Others have sought to unveil the mystery of evil through the lens of Gnosticism, the esoteric tradition that sees the material world as a prison, a domain of ignorance and illusion ruled by a false god, the demiurge. In this perspective, Lucifer is a Promethean figure, a bringer of light and liberation, who rebels against the tyranny of a lesser deity in order to awaken humanity to its true spiritual nature. But this too is a dangerous and deviant path, one that leads away from the hard truths of the human condition and into the labyrinth of metaphysical speculation. Perhaps in the end, the key to understanding Lucifer's role in the problem of evil lies not in cosmic dualism or Gnostic esotericism, but in the depths of the human psyche. As Carl Jung and other depth psychologists have suggested, Lucifer may be a projection of our own shadow, the repressed, rejected, and unacknowledged aspects of our own being. By externalizing evil in the figure of the fallen angel, we are able to distance ourselves from the darkness within, to maintain the illusion of our own innocence and righteousness. But the price of this psychological sleight of hand is high. By scapegoating Lucifer, we deny our own responsibility for the evils of the world. We abdicate our own agency in the face of injustice and suffering. We become passive spectators in the cosmic drama, waiting for some external savior to redeem us from the consequences of our own actions. And in doing so, we give evil the ultimate victory, the victory of our own complacency and complicity. No, if we are to confront the problem of evil with honesty and courage, we must be willing to look within, to acknowledge the Lucifer that lurks in the depths of our own psyche. We must be willing to take responsibility for our own choices, our own failures, our own capacity for destruction and deceit. Only then can we hope to redeem the fallen angel within us, to transform the lead of our own darkness into the gold of a higher consciousness. This is the true alchemy of the soul, the great work that Lucifer invites us to undertake. It is a path of self-knowledge and self-transformation, a path that leads through the darkest recesses of the human heart and into the light of a new dawn. And as we walk this path, we may find that Lucifer is not our enemy but our guide, the bringer of light who illuminates the shadows and shows us the way to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world we inhabit. So, let us not flinch from the abyss of the problem of evil. Let us not seek easy answers or comforting illusions. Let us instead embrace the darkness within and without, knowing that it is only by facing our own demons that we can hope to transcend them. For in the end, Lucifer's role in the origin of evil is not to provide a final solution, but to awaken us to the mystery and complexity of the human condition, and to the ultimate responsibility we bear for the fate of our own souls. As we navigate the twisting paths of the Lucifer mythos, we find ourselves confronted again and again with the fundamental questions of free will and rebellion against authority. These are the great fault lines that run through the heart of the Lucifer story, the tectonic plates of meaning whose collisions and ruptures give rise to the existential earthquakes that shake the foundations of our understanding. At the core of this debate lies the figure of Lucifer himself, the archetype of the rebel par excellence. In his defiance of God's authority, his willful rejection of the divine order, Lucifer embodies the ultimate act of free will, the choice to say no to the very source of his being. It is a choice that resonates deeply with the human condition, the primal impulse to assert our own agency and autonomy in the face of the forces that would constrain and control us. In this sense, Lucifer's rebellion can be seen as a metaphor for the eternal human struggle for self-determination and liberation. From the earliest stirrings of human consciousness, we have chafed against the bonds of tradition, dogma, and authority, seeking to carve out a space for our own will and desire. Whether in the realm of politics, religion, or personal relationships, the drive to rebel, to break free from the shackles of oppression and conformity, has been a constant throughout history. And yet, as the Lucifer myth so powerfully demonstrates, the exercise of free will is never without consequence. In choosing to rebel against God, Lucifer sets in motion a chain of events that leads inexorably to his own downfall and damnation. His pride and his refusal to submit to a higher power ultimately consume him, casting him out of heaven and into the abyss of eternal darkness. This cautionary aspect of the Lucifer story has long been emphasized by religious and moral authorities who see in the fallen angel a warning against the dangers of unchecked individualism and the arrogance of the self. In this view, Lucifer's rebellion is the ultimate sin, the source of all the evil and suffering in the world, and a testament to the necessity of obedience and humility before the divine order. And yet, even as the traditional narrative condemns Lucifer's rebellion, it cannot entirely suppress the seductive allure of his defiance. For in daring to stand against the might of heaven, in asserting his own will and judgment in the face of the ultimate authority, Lucifer becomes a symbol of the indomitable human spirit, the Promethean fire that burns within us all. This duality is captured brilliantly in Milton's Paradise Lost, where Satan emerges as a complex and tragic hero, a figure of terrible beauty and pathos whose very damnation is a kind of triumph. In his famous declaration, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven," Satan gives voice to the rebel's credo, the unquenchable thirst for freedom and self-determination that animates the human heart. And so, as we grapple with the themes of free will and rebellion in the Lucifer myth, we are forced to confront the fundamental paradoxes of the human condition. On the one hand, we yearn for freedom, for the power to shape our own destiny and to live according to our own will and desire. On the other hand, we recognize the necessity of limits, of structure and authority, of the boundaries that hold us together as individuals and as a society. In the end, perhaps the true lesson of the Lucifer story is that the exercise of free will is always a double-edged sword, a choice that carries with it both the possibility of liberation and the risk of damnation. As we navigate the labyrinth of our own lives, as we struggle to find our own path amidst the competing forces of freedom and fate, we must learn to walk the razor's edge between rebellion and responsibility, between the assertion of our own will and the recognition of our place in the greater order of things. For in the final analysis, the choice to rebel, to say no to the powers that be, is a choice that each of us must make for ourselves. It is a choice that will shape the contours of our own destiny, that will determine the legacy we leave behind in the world. And as we make that choice, as we take that leap into the unknown, we would do well to remember the lessons of the Lucifer myth, the perils and the possibilities of free will, the glory and the tragedy of the rebel's path. The rebellion burns within us, the unquenchable fire of the human spirit that drives us ever forward into the unknown. But let us also remember the price of that rebellion, the responsibility we bear for the consequences of our choices. For in the end, it is not Lucifer's fate that hangs in the balance, but our own, the fate of our own souls and of the world we will leave behind. We find ourselves enveloped in a world of shadows and illumination, where the eternal dance of light and darkness plays out in a symphony of symbols and metaphors. At the center of this chiaroscuro canvas stands the figure of Lucifer himself, the bringer of light, whose very name evokes the dawn and the morning star, the harbinger of a new day. And yet, as we have seen throughout our journey, the light that Lucifer represents is no simple or straightforward thing. It is a light that casts shadows, a light that blinds even as it illuminates, a light that can lead us into the depths of the abyss as surely as it can guide us to the heights of enlightenment. In the Western esoteric tradition, the light of Lucifer is often associated with the light of knowledge, the Promethean fire that awakens the mind and ignites the spark of consciousness within the human soul. It is the light of gnosis, the inner illumination that pierces the veil of illusion and reveals the hidden nature of reality. In this sense, Lucifer is a bringer of enlightenment, a guide who leads the seeker out of the darkness of ignorance and into the light of understanding. And yet, as the myth of the fall so powerfully demonstrates, this same light can also be a source of temptation and transgression, a seductive flame that lures us away from the path of righteousness and into the shadows of sin. The knowledge that Lucifer offers is a forbidden fruit, a tantalizing glimpse of the divine that comes at the price of exile and suffering. In tasting of this fruit, in partaking of the light of Lucifer, we are cast out of the garden of innocence and into the wilderness of experience, where we must handle the consequences of our own choices and desires. This duality of light and darkness, of knowledge and transgression, is reflected in the rich symbolism that surrounds the figure of Lucifer. In the book of Isaiah, Lucifer is described as the morning star, the shining one who falls from heaven like lightning. This celestial imagery evokes the brilliance and the beauty of the divine, the radiant splendor of the angelic realms. And yet, in falling from these lofty heights, Lucifer becomes a creature of the shadows, a denizen of the underworld who presides over the darkness of the abyss. In the same way, the light that Lucifer brings to humanity is a light that casts a long shadow, a light that reveals the darkness within our own souls. For in illuminating the hidden recesses of our psyche, in awakening us to the depths of our own desires and fears, Lucifer forces us to confront the shadow self, the repressed and rejected aspects of our own being. This is the dark night of the soul, the initiatory ordeal that we must undergo in order to emerge into the light of self-knowledge and self-transformation. And yet, even as we grapple with the shadows within, we cannot help but be drawn to the light that Lucifer represents, the tantalizing promise of illumination and transcendence. For the light of Lucifer is also the light of the imagination, the creative fire that fuels our dreams and our visions, our hopes and our aspirations. It is the light of the rebel and the revolutionary, the Promethean spirit that dares to challenge the status quo and to imagine a world beyond the confines of the given. In this sense, the symbolism of light and darkness in the Lucifer myth is not simply a matter of good and evil, of right and wrong. Rather, it is a complex and dynamic interplay of forces, a dance of opposites that mirrors the fundamental duality of the human condition. For we are creatures of both light and shadow, beings who straddle the boundary between the known and the unknown, the conscious and the unconscious, the mortal and the divine. And so, as we contemplate the meaning of Lucifer's light, we are forced to confront the paradox of our own existence, the mystery of a world where darkness and illumination are inextricably intertwined. We must learn to navigate the chiaroscuro landscape of our own souls, to embrace the shadows even as we seek the light, to find the courage to face the darkness within and without. For in the end, the true light of Lucifer is not a light that dispels the darkness, but a light that illuminates it, that reveals its hidden depths and its secret beauty. It is a light that teaches us to see with new eyes, to perceive the world in all its complexity and its contradictions, to embrace the fullness of the human experience in all its terror and its wonder. And as we step into this light, as we dare to follow the path of the morning star, we may find that the shadows are not our enemies but our allies, the necessary counterpart to the light that guides us on our journey. For it is only in the interplay of light and darkness, in the dance of opposites, that we can hope to discover the truth of our own being, the mystery of the self that lies at the heart of the Lucifer myth. So let us not fear the darkness, but let us learn to see with eyes of shadow and illumination. Let us embrace the light of Lucifer, not as a simple answer or a final destination, but as a guiding star that leads us ever deeper into the labyrinth of our own souls. And let us trust that in the end, the light will lead us home, to a place of wholeness and integration, where the darkness and the light are one, and the mystery of existence is revealed in all its terrible and beautiful glory. As we journey through the vast and varied landscape of world mythology, we find that the figure of Lucifer is far from alone in his role as the rebellious antagonist of the divine order. In countless cultures and traditions, we encounter other gods, demigods, and mythical beings who share striking similarities with the fallen angel of the Judeo-Christian tradition, from the cunning Loki of Norse mythology to the trickster Coyote of Native American lore. These rebel gods and trickster figures serve as a powerful reminder that the archetype of the divine rebel is a universal one, a symbol that speaks to something deep and primal within the human psyche. Whether they are cast as heroes or villains, saviors or destroyers, these mythic beings embody the eternal struggle between order and chaos, tradition and innovation, the status quo and the forces of change. In many ways, these figures can be seen as the shadow side of the ruling deities, the necessary counterbalance to the forces of stability and authority. Just as Lucifer rebels against the tyranny of heaven, so too do these other divine rebels challenge the established order, questioning the very foundations of the cosmos and the nature of divine law. Take, for example, the figure of Prometheus in Greek mythology. Like Lucifer, Prometheus is a bringer of light and knowledge, stealing the divine fire of the gods and gifting it to humanity. And like Lucifer, Prometheus pays a terrible price for his transgression. Chained to a rock, where an eagle forever pecks at his regenerating liver. Yet Prometheus is also a figure of great nobility and self-sacrifice, willing to suffer eternal torment for the sake of human progress and enlightenment. Similarly, in Norse mythology, we find the figure of Loki, the trickster god who delights in sowing chaos and discord among the gods of Asgard. Loki is a shapeshifter and a master of disguise, able to assume any form and to manipulate reality itself. Yet Loki is also a tragic figure, driven by his own insecurities and resentments, forever seeking to undermine the authority of Odin and the other gods. In Egyptian mythology, we encounter the god Set, the lord of darkness and chaos, who battles against the forces of light and order. Set is a fearsome and formidable figure associated with violence, destruction, and the untamed power of the desert. Yet Set is also a necessary part of the cosmic balance, the yang to the yin of Osiris and Horus, the shadow that gives depth and meaning to the light. And in the mythology of the Americas, we find a rich tradition of trickster figures, from the coyote of the Southwest to the raven of the Pacific Northwest. These tricksters are often portrayed as mischievous and unpredictable beings, forever getting into trouble and upsetting the natural order of things. Yet they are also powerful creators and transformers, able to shape the world through their wit and their magic, their cunning and their craft. As we contemplate these other rebel gods and trickster figures, we begin to see the deeper patterns and meanings that underlie the Lucifer archetype. We see that the divine rebel is not simply a figure of evil or destruction, but a complex and multifaceted symbol that embodies both the light and the darkness, the creative and the destructive, the noble and the base. For in challenging the established order, in questioning the very nature of divine authority, these mythic beings force us to confront the fundamental questions of existence. Who are we? Why are we here? What is the meaning and purpose of our lives? These are the questions that lie at the heart of all mythology, the enduring mysteries that have haunted the human imagination since the dawn of time. We are forced to confront the rebel and the trickster within ourselves, the part of us that yearns to break free from the constraints of convention. We are reminded that the path of the rebel is never an easy one, that it is a path fraught with danger and sacrifice, with suffering and loss. Yet we are also reminded that it is only through rebellion and struggle that we can hope to grow and evolve, to transcend the limitations of our own nature and to glimpse the infinite possibilities of the universe. For in the end, the divine rebel is not our enemy, but our ally, the force that propels us forward on the path of self-discovery and self-transformation. So let us embrace the rebel and the trickster within. Let us learn to dance with the forces of chaos and change. Let us take inspiration from the mythic beings who have gone before us, who have dared to challenge the gods and to stake their claim in the great cosmic drama. And let us trust that in the end, the path of the rebel will lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and of the world we inhabit, to a place of wisdom and power, of freedom and grace. For the way of the rebel is the way of the soul, the hero's journey that leads us ever onward into the unknown. And though the path may be dark and the way unclear, we can take comfort in the knowledge that we do not walk alone, that we are part of a great and ancient tradition, a lineage of mythic rebels and tricksters who have blazed the trail before us. So let us go forth with courage and with faith. Let us embrace the darkness and the light, the chaos and the order, the rebel and the trickster within. And let us trust that, in the end, the journey will be worth the price, that the treasures we seek will be found, and that the mysteries of existence will be revealed in all their terrible and beautiful glory. As we explore the many faces of Lucifer across the realms of myth, religion, and culture, we find ourselves entering a shadowy and often misunderstood domain, the world of the occult and the esoteric. Here, in the secret societies and mystery schools, the magical lodges and New Age circles, the figure of Lucifer takes on new and often surprising forms, revealing dimensions of meaning that challenge and transcend the conventional narratives of good and evil. In the Western esoteric tradition, Lucifer is often seen as a bringer of enlightenment, a Promethean figure who challenges the boundaries of human knowledge and consciousness. From the Gnostic sects of late antiquity to the Hermetic philosophers of the Renaissance, from the Rosicrucians and Freemasons of the Enlightenment to the Theosophists and Anthroposophists of the modern era, Lucifer has been invoked as a symbol of liberation and self-realization, a guide on the path of spiritual awakening. In these esoteric contexts, the fall of Lucifer is often interpreted not as a literal event, but as a metaphor for the descent of the divine spark into the realm of matter, the incarnation of spirit in the world of form. Lucifer becomes the light-bearer who illuminates the darkness of the material plane, the rebel angel who defies the demiurge and seeks to free humanity from the bonds of ignorance and illusion. This Gnostic vision of Lucifer is perhaps most fully articulated in the work of Rudolf Steiner, the Austrian philosopher and esotericist who founded the anthroposophical movement in the early 20th century. For Steiner, Lucifer is not an evil being, but a necessary agent of human evolution, a cosmic force that challenges us to develop our own inner strength and wisdom. In Steiner's cosmology, Lucifer is balanced by the opposing force of Ahriman, the spirit of materialism and darkness, and it is only through the mediation of the Christ impulse that humanity can find its true path of spiritual development. Similarly, in the Luciferian current of modern occultism, the fallen angel is seen as a symbol of rebellion against the tyranny of the demiurge, the false god who created the material world as a trap for the divine spark of human consciousness. For practitioners of this path, Lucifer is the bringer of gnosis, the liberator who offers the keys to spiritual freedom and self-transformation. Through rituals of invocation and magical workings, the Luciferian seeks to awaken the latent powers of the psyche and to align themselves with the cosmic forces of chaos and change. In the New Age movement, Lucifer often takes on a more positive and benevolent aspect, associated with the energies of transformation, creativity, and spiritual growth. Here, the fallen angel is seen as a teacher and guide, a being of light who helps us to break free from the limitations of the ego and to realize our true divine nature. In this context, Lucifer is often invoked alongside other celestial beings such as angels, ascended masters, and extraterrestrial intelligences as part of a cosmic hierarchy of spiritual evolution. Of course, these esoteric and New Age visions of Lucifer are not without their controversies and critics. For many traditional religious authorities, the invocation of Lucifer in any form is seen as a dangerous and heretical practice, a violation of divine law that can only lead to spiritual corruption and damnation. And for skeptics and rationalists, the claims of occult and New Age traditions are often dismissed as mere superstition and fantasy, a product of wishful thinking and psychological projection. Yet for those who walk the path of the occult and the esoteric, the figure of Lucifer remains a powerful and enduring symbol, a key to the mysteries of the self and the cosmos. Whether seen as a literal being or a metaphorical archetype, a force of light or a spirit of darkness, Lucifer continues to fascinate and inspire, to challenge us to question our assumptions and to seek our own truth beyond the veil of appearances. As we contemplate the role of Lucifer in these esoteric traditions, we are reminded of the ultimate mystery and ambiguity of the divine, the fact that the deepest truths often lie beyond the reach of dogma and doctrine. We are challenged to embrace the paradox and the complexity of the spiritual path, to recognize that light and darkness, good and evil, are not always what they seem, and that the journey of awakening often leads us through strange and uncharted territories of the soul. In the end, perhaps the true gift of Lucifer is not any particular teaching or revelation, but rather the invitation to question, to seek, to explore the hidden dimensions of reality and consciousness. For it is only by embracing the unknown, by daring to rebel against the limitations of the given, that we can hope to discover our own inner light, to awaken to the divinity that dwells within us all. So let us approach the figure of Lucifer in these esoteric contexts, with an open mind and a discerning spirit, with a willingness to learn from the wisdom of the past, even as we chart our own path into the future. Let us be guided by the light of gnosis and the fire of spiritual aspiration, even as we remain grounded in the realities of the material world and the demands of ethical action. And let us remember that in the end, the true meaning of Lucifer lies not in any external doctrine or tradition, but in the depths of our own being, in the spark of divine consciousness that animates us all. For it is only by embracing the Lucifer within, by facing the darkness and the light with equal courage and compassion, that we can hope to achieve the ultimate goal of the esoteric path, the realization of our own inherent divinity, the awakening to the cosmic consciousness that is our birthright and our destiny. We arrive at a towering landmark in the landscape of literature, John Milton's epic masterpiece Paradise Lost. Published in 1667, this monumental work of poetry has shaped our understanding of Lucifer and the fall, like no other text save perhaps the Bible itself. In Milton's vivid and compelling portrayal, Lucifer emerges as a complex and tragic figure, a rebel whose defiance of God's authority is at once heroic and hubristic, noble and doomed. At the heart of Paradise Lost lies the figure of Lucifer, or Satan as he is more commonly known in Milton's text. Cast out of heaven for leading a rebellion against God, Lucifer and his fellow fallen angels find themselves exiled to the depths of hell, a realm of darkness and despair. Yet even in this bleak and hopeless place, Lucifer's spirit remains unbroken, his pride and ambition undimmed. In one of the most famous speeches in all of literature, he declares, "The mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell a hell of heaven." These words capture the essence of Milton's Lucifer, a being of immense willpower and imagination who refuses to submit to any authority other than his own. For Lucifer, the freedom to choose his own path, even if that path leads to damnation, is the highest value, the very core of his identity. Throughout Paradise Lost, Milton imbues Lucifer with a sense of tragic grandeur, a nobility of spirit that shines through even in his darkest moments. We see this in the vivid descriptions of Lucifer's physical beauty and charisma, in the power and eloquence of his speeches, and in the loyalty and devotion he inspires in his fellow fallen angels. Even as we recognize the evil of his actions, we cannot help but be moved by the sheer force of his personality, the magnetism of his presence. At the same time, Milton does not shy away from depicting the darker aspects of Lucifer's character, his pride, his envy, his deceitfulness. We see this most clearly in the temptation of Eve, where Lucifer, disguised as a serpent, lures her into eating the forbidden fruit with honeyed words and false promises. Here, Milton reveals the seductive power of evil, the way in which Lucifer's lies and manipulations can twist the human heart and lead us astray. Yet even in this moment of temptation and fall, Milton suggests a deeper complexity to Lucifer's character. For in tempting Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge, Lucifer is not merely acting out of malice or spite, but out of a genuine belief in the power of knowledge and free will. He sees himself as a liberator, a bringer of enlightenment to humanity, even as he knows that this enlightenment will come at a terrible cost. This duality, the tension between Lucifer's noble aspirations and his destructive actions, lies at the heart of Milton's portrayal. Throughout Paradise Lost, we are invited to experience with the complex morality of Lucifer's rebellion, to confront the ways in which the pursuit of freedom and knowledge can lead us into darkness and despair. In many ways, Milton's Lucifer serves as a mirror for the human condition itself, our endless capacity for both good and evil, our yearning for autonomy and meaning in a universe that often seems indifferent or hostile to our dreams. By giving voice to Lucifer's inner struggles and motivations, Milton invites us to confront our own deepest desires and fears, to recognize the Luciferian impulses that reside within us all. At the same time, Paradise Lost also serves as a profound meditation on the nature of God's justice and mercy, the question of free will and predestination that lies at the heart of Christian theology. In Milton's telling, God is not a tyrant or a despot, but a loving Father who grants his creatures the freedom to choose their own path, even if that path leads to suffering and damnation. Lucifer's rebellion, then, is not merely a revolt against divine authority, but a rejection of God's love and grace, a willful turning away from the light of truth. In the end, Milton's portrayal of Lucifer remains one of the most enduring and influential in all of literature, a testament to the power of poetry to illuminate the darkest recesses of the human soul. Through the prism of Lucifer's fall and exile, we are invited to confront the eternal questions of good and evil, freedom and fate, rebellion and redemption. For in the figure of Lucifer, Milton captures something essential about the human experience: our endless striving for meaning and purpose, our yearning for transcendence and transformation, even in the face of suffering and despair. By giving voice to Lucifer's anguish and ambition, his pride and his pain, Milton reminds us of the terrible beauty and grandeur of the soul in rebellion, the way in which even our darkest struggles can be shot through with glimmers of the divine. As we reflect on Milton's masterful portrayal of Lucifer, we are reminded of the enduring power of myth and archetype to shape our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. For in the epic drama of Paradise Lost, we find not only a timeless story of fall and redemption, but a mirror of our own deepest longings and fears, our own endless search for meaning and grace in a universe that often seems indifferent to our fate. So let us continue to grapple with the complex and tragic figure of Milton's Lucifer, to confront the questions and challenges he poses to our understanding of good and evil, freedom and fate. For in doing so, we may catch a glimpse of the divine spark that lies hidden within us all, the Promethean fire that drives us ever onward in our quest for truth and meaning, even in the face of the darkest night of the soul. We must inevitably turn to the source that has shaped his image more than any other, the Bible itself. For it is in the pages of Scripture that we find the first traces of the fallen angel, the serpent in the garden, the adversary of God and humanity. And it is in the vast tradition of theological interpretation that has grown up around these biblical accounts that we can trace the evolution of Lucifer from a shadowy figure of temptation and rebellion to a complex symbol of evil, freedom, and the human condition. The name Lucifer itself appears only once in the Bible, in a passage from the book of Isaiah that has long been interpreted as a reference to the fall of a mighty king or angel. How you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn! How you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low! Over time, this cryptic passage came to be associated with the story of Satan's fall from grace, a narrative that is hinted at in other biblical texts, but never fully elaborated. In the book of Revelation, for example, we read of a great war in heaven, in which the archangel Michael and his angels defeat the dragon, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world, and cast him down to the earth. These scattered references to a fallen angel or heavenly adversary have given rise to a rich tradition of theological speculation and interpretation, as thinkers from the early church fathers to modern-day scholars have grappled with the nature and significance of Lucifer. In the writings of Origen and Augustine, we find some of the earliest attempts to systematize the biblical data on Satan and the fall, to trace the origins of evil back to the rebellion of a once glorious angel. For these early Christian thinkers, Lucifer's fall was a cosmic event with profound implications for the nature of God, humanity, and the world itself. In rebelling against his creator, Lucifer introduced sin and death into the universe, severing the bond between heaven and earth and plunging creation into a state of alienation and disorder. At the same time, his rebellion was seen as a perversion of the very freedom and autonomy that God had granted to his creatures, a tragic demonstration of the dangers of pride and disobedience. As Christianity spread and evolved over the centuries, so too did the figure of Lucifer, taking on new shades of meaning and significance in different cultural and historical contexts. In medieval Europe, he became a central figure in the popular imagination, a terrifying embodiment of sin and temptation who lurked at the edges of every human soul. In the art and literature of the Renaissance and beyond, he emerged as a symbol of rebellion and individualism, a Promethean figure who dared to challenge the authority of God and the limitations of human knowledge. Yet even as Lucifer's image has shifted and morphed over time, the core elements of his biblical portrait have remained remarkably consistent. He is the serpent in the Garden of Eden, the tempter who lures humanity into sin with the promise of godlike knowledge and power. He is the accuser who stands before the throne of God, challenging the righteousness of Job and the integrity of creation itself. He is the prince of this world, the ruler of a fallen realm that stands in opposition to the kingdom of God. These biblical themes have continued to shape theological debates about the nature and origin of evil, the problem of suffering, and the fate of the cosmos itself. For some thinkers, Lucifer's rebellion is seen as a necessary part of God's plan, a means of testing and purifying humanity in preparation for the final redemption. For others, it represents a fundamental challenge to the goodness and omnipotence of God, a troubling reminder of the darkness that lurks at the heart of creation. Ultimately, the biblical accounts and theological interpretations of Lucifer point to the enduring power of this figure to embody some of the deepest questions and tensions of the human experience. In his pride and his pain, his nobility and his malice, Lucifer reflects the paradoxes and ambiguities of a world that is at once fallen and redeemed, broken and beautiful. As we levitate with these ancient texts and traditions, we are invited to confront the shadows within our own hearts, to wrestle with the mystery of evil and the hope of grace. We are reminded that the story of Lucifer is not just a tale of cosmic rebellion and divine judgment, but a mirror of our own struggles and aspirations, our own longing for meaning and transcendence in a world that often seems shrouded in darkness. So let us continue to explore the biblical roots and theological dimensions of the Lucifer mythos, to plumb the depths of this endlessly fascinating and enigmatic figure. For in doing so, we may catch a glimpse of the greater story in which we are all caught up. The story of a fallen world that is yet shot through with glimmers of the divine. The story of a God who descends into the very heart of darkness to bring light and life to all creation. In the end, the biblical Lucifer remains a mystery and a challenge, a symbol of the eternal struggle between good and evil, freedom and fate, rebellion and redemption. Yet in wrestling with this mystery and grappling with the darkness that he represents, we may find a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world we inhabit, a greater appreciation for the beauty and the terror of the human condition. For the story of Lucifer is ultimately the story of us all, fallen creatures in a fallen world, yearning for the light of a new dawn. And it is in the pages of Scripture and the annals of theology that we can trace the contours of this story, the epic drama of sin and salvation that lies at the very heart of the Judeo-Christian tradition. So let us approach these ancient texts and traditions with humility and reverence, with a willingness to be challenged and transformed by the truths they contain. And let us trust that in the end, the light will prevail over the darkness, that the love of God will triumph over the rebellion of Lucifer, and that all creation will be made new in the glorious dawn of redemption. As we near the end of our journey through the many faces of Lucifer, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment in the history of Western thought, the Age of Enlightenment. This was a time of great intellectual ferment and upheaval, when the old certainties of religion and tradition were challenged by the new forces of reason and science. And it was in this context that the figure of Lucifer took on a new and surprising significance, emerging as a symbol of the eternal struggle between faith and skepticism, authority and autonomy, revelation and revolution. For the thinkers of the Enlightenment, Lucifer represented a powerful and provocative archetype, the rebel who dared to question the established order, the iconoclast who sought to overthrow the tyranny of dogma and superstition. In the face of a church that had long claimed a monopoly on truth and morality, Lucifer appeared as a champion of free thought and individual conscience, a Promethean figure who stole the fire of knowledge from the gods and gave it to humanity. This Enlightenment reading of Lucifer can be seen in the works of writers and philosophers like Voltaire, Diderot, and Goethe, who celebrated the fallen angel as a hero of reason and progress. In Goethe's Faust, for example, Mephistopheles, a stand-in for Lucifer, is portrayed not as a malevolent tempter, but as a necessary catalyst for Faust's intellectual and spiritual growth. Through his encounters with the devil, Faust is forced to confront the limits of his own knowledge and to seek a higher truth beyond the confines of traditional religion. Similarly, in the radical politics of the French Revolution, Lucifer became a potent symbol of resistance against the ancien regime of church and monarchy. For the revolutionaries, the fall of Lucifer was reinterpreted as a heroic act of rebellion against the tyranny of heaven, a model for the earthly struggle against oppression and injustice. In this context, the Enlightenment ideal of reason became a weapon in the fight against the irrational dogmas of the past, a beacon of hope for a new age of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Of course, this Enlightenment vision of Lucifer was not without its critics and detractors. For many traditional Christians, the celebration of the fallen angel as a hero of reason and progress was seen as a dangerous and heretical inversion of the biblical narrative. In their view, Lucifer's rebellion against God was not a noble act of defiance, but a tragic example of pride and disobedience, a cautionary tale about the dangers of placing human reason above divine revelation. Moreover, some Enlightenment thinkers themselves recognized the potential dangers of an unchecked rationalism, of a worldview that dismissed the claims of faith and tradition as mere superstition. They saw in the figure of Lucifer a warning about the hubris of the human intellect, the tendency to elevate our own understanding above the wisdom of the ages. In this sense, the Enlightenment reading of Lucifer contained within itself a kind of self-critique, a recognition of the limits and pitfalls of the very ideal it sought to promote. As we reflect on these Enlightenment themes of reason versus faith, we are reminded of the enduring power of the Lucifer mythos to encapsulate some of the deepest tensions and paradoxes of the human condition. For in the struggle between the rebel angel and the divine authority, we see a reflection of our own inner conflicts and contradictions, our yearning for freedom and autonomy, our fear of chaos and uncertainty, our longing for meaning and purpose in a world that often seems indifferent or hostile to our dreams. Ultimately, the Enlightenment reading of Lucifer challenges us to confront these tensions head-on and embrace reason and faith, skepticism and belief, rebellion and tradition. It invites us to question our own assumptions and biases, to seek a higher truth that transcends the narrow confines of dogma and ideology. And it reminds us that the path to genuine enlightenment is never easy or straightforward, but requires a willingness to embrace the unknown, to risk the condemnation of the crowd, to follow the light of our own conscience even in the face of darkness and doubt. As we stand at the threshold of a new era, facing challenges and opportunities that would have been unimaginable to the thinkers of the Enlightenment, the figure of Lucifer remains as relevant and provocative as ever. For in his rebellion and his fall, his pride and his pain, Lucifer embodies the eternal human struggle for knowledge, for freedom, for meaning in a world that often seems cold and unyielding. He is a reminder that the quest for truth and justice is never finished, that the work of reason and progress must be renewed in every generation. So let us embrace the spirit of the Enlightenment, even as we remain mindful of its limitations and dangers. Let us seek to balance the claims of reason and faith, to find a path that honors both the wisdom of tradition and the imperative of change. And let us never forget that the ultimate source of enlightenment lies not in any external authority or ideology, but in the still, small voice of our own conscience, the spark of divine light that burns within us all. For in the end, the story of Lucifer is not just a tale of rebellion and damnation, but a testament to the indomitable human spirit, the endless capacity for growth, for transformation, for transcendence. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always the possibility of a new dawn, a new beginning, a new birth of freedom and hope. Throughout our exploration of the many faces of Lucifer, we have seen how this figure has been shaped by the specific historical and cultural contexts in which he has appeared. From the ancient Near East to contemporary Western society, the evolution of the Lucifer mythos reflects the changing religious, philosophical, and artistic currents of each era. In the biblical tradition, the figure of Lucifer emerges against the backdrop of Jewish monotheism and the struggle to understand the nature of evil in a world created by a benevolent God. The early Christian church fathers, grappling with the challenge of Gnosticism and the legacy of pagan mythology, developed a complex demonology in which Lucifer played a central role as the adversary of Christ and the embodiment of sin. During the medieval period, the figure of Lucifer became a potent symbol of the struggle between orthodoxy and heresy, as the Catholic Church sought to assert its authority against various theological and political challenges. In the popular imagination, the devil became a ubiquitous presence, a terrifying reminder of the dangers of temptation and the necessity of faith. The Renaissance and Reformation brought new perspectives on the figure of Lucifer, as artists and writers began to explore the tragic and heroic dimensions of the fallen angel. In the works of Dante, Milton, and Goethe, among others, Lucifer emerges as a complex and ambiguous figure, a rebel against tyranny, and a symbol of the human struggle for knowledge and freedom. With the advent of the Enlightenment, the figure of Lucifer took on new significance as a champion of reason and progress against the forces of superstition and dogma. In the revolutionary fervor of the 18th and 19th centuries, the fallen angel became a potent symbol of political and social liberation, a heroic figure in the struggle against oppression and injustice. In the modern era, the figure of Lucifer has been shaped by the rise of secularism, individualism, and mass media. In popular culture, the devil has become a ubiquitous presence, a symbol of rebellion, sensuality, and the dark side of human nature. At the same time, the figure of Lucifer has been reinterpreted by new religious and spiritual movements, from theosophy and anthroposophy to contemporary Satanism and Luciferianism. By situating the various interpretations of Lucifer within their specific historical and cultural contexts, we can better understand the enduring power of this archetypal figure to reflect the hopes, fears, and aspirations of different societies and worldviews. As we continue to touch the complex legacy of this symbol in our own time, it is essential to recognize the ways in which our understanding of Lucifer is shaped by the particular circumstances of our own historical moment. As we come to the end of our exploration of the many faces of Lucifer, we are left with a profound sense of the enduring power and complexity of this archetypal figure. From the biblical serpent in the Garden of Eden to the tragic hero of Renaissance literature, from the rebel angel of the Enlightenment to the dark seducer of modern popular culture, Lucifer has taken on a dizzying array of forms and meanings across the centuries. Through comparative mythology, we have seen how the figure of Lucifer resonates with other trickster and rebel figures across different cultural traditions, embodying the eternal human struggle against the constraints of divine authority and the limitations of mortal existence. Through biblical interpretation and theological reflection, we have grappled with the profound questions of evil, free will, and the nature of the divine that are raised by the story of Lucifer's fall and subsequent role as the adversary of God and humanity. In the realms of art, literature, and popular culture, we have explored the many ways in which the figure of Lucifer has been reimagined and reinterpreted across the centuries, from the grotesque demons of medieval iconography to the suave and seductive anti-heroes of contemporary film and television. We have seen how these artistic representations both reflect and shape our cultural attitudes towards evil, transgression, individuality, and the search for meaning in a postmodern world. Through the lens of psychology, we have delved into the symbolic significance of Lucifer as a manifestation of the Jungian shadow, the dark and repressed aspects of the human psyche. We have explored the ways in which the confrontation with this inner darkness can lead to profound transformation and self-awareness, as well as the dangers of projection and scapegoating that can arise when we fail to integrate the Luciferian aspects of our own nature. Finally, we have considered the historical and cultural contexts in which the figure of Lucifer has evolved over time, from the dualistic cosmologies of the ancient world to the secular and individualistic ethos of modernity. We have seen how the changing face of Lucifer reflects the shifting values, beliefs and power structures of different societies, as well as the enduring human fascination with the mysteries of good and evil, light and darkness, rebellion and conformity. As we reflect on the rich and multifaceted legacy of this enduring archetype, it is clear that the figure of Lucifer continues to exert a powerful hold on our collective imagination. Whether we see him as a literal fallen angel, a metaphorical embodiment of human pride and disobedience, or a psychological projection of our own deepest fears and desires, Lucifer remains a potent and provocative symbol of the eternal human struggle for knowledge, freedom, and self-determination. In the end, perhaps the greatest lesson we can take from our exploration of the many faces of Lucifer is the recognition of the profound complexity and ambiguity of the human condition. Like the fallen angel himself, we are beings of light and darkness, capable of great good and great evil, forever struggling to find our place in a world that is both beautiful and terrible, sacred and profane. By embracing the Luciferian aspects of our own nature, our curiosity, our creativity, our yearning for transcendence, while also acknowledging the shadow side of pride, rebellion and destructiveness, we may yet find a way to navigate the chiaroscuro landscape of our own souls. In doing so, we may discover that the path to genuine enlightenment and liberation lies not in the rejection of darkness, but in the integration of light and shadow, the reconciliation of opposites, and the realization of our own divine potential. So let us give thanks for the enduring mystery and power of the Lucifer mythos, which continues to inspire, challenge, and transform us across the ages. And let us go forth with renewed courage and compassion, ready to face the darkness within and without, and to seek the light of truth and wisdom wherever it may be found. For in the end, the story of Lucifer is the story of us all, a story of fall and redemption, of despair and hope, of the eternal human quest for meaning and purpose in a cosmos that is both terrifying and sublime.